Nicholas Bellini signed the last document at exactly 11:47 p.m., his penmanship controlled and deliberate across the dotted line. The contract authorized $3 million in movement through shell companies in the Cayman Islands, money that would eventually fund expansion into New Jersey territory. Clean, efficient, untraceable. 40 years old, and he still reviewed every financial detail personally. Trust was a luxury men in his position couldn't afford. His office stretched across the top floor of a private building in Manhattan, walls lined with dark wood and leather-bound books he'd never read, but kept for appearances. Security monitors blinked silently in the corner, showing feeds from 12 different properties he owned across 3 states. The city sprawled beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, a grid of lights and movement that never truly slept. He reached for his espresso cup when the intercom buzzed. "Boss." The voice belonged to Marcus, head of his security detail. "Someone's at the street entrance. Young woman, soaking wet, says she has a delivery that can't wait." Nicholas checked his watch. Nearly midnight on a Thursday. "We're not expecting anything. She's insisting. Says it's from Hartford, Connecticut. Urgent floral delivery with a note attached. She won't leave it with us. Hartford." Nicholas felt something cold settle in his chest, though he couldn't identify why. He didn't know anyone in Hartford. "Bring her up. Search her first." 3 minutes later, his office door opened. Marcus stepped aside, revealing a young woman clutching a black box wrapped in silver ribbon. Water dripped from her hair onto the marble floor. Her jacket soaked through, sneakers squeaking as she shifted her weight nervously. Nicholas stood slowly, studying her. Maybe 18, 19 at most. Pale skin, brown hair plastered to her shoulders, green eyes that darted around the office taking in expensive furniture and security cameras before landing on him. "I'm sorry for the hour." Her voice was steadier than he expected given how she trembled. "My mom said this absolutely had to be delivered tonight. She was very specific about the address and the time." Nicholas gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit, you're freezing." She hesitated, then obeyed, placing the black box on his desk carefully, as if it contained something fragile. "I work at Grant Flowers in Hartford. My mom owns it. She's been sick and she called me around 9 tonight begging me to drive this here personally. She wouldn't explain why. Just kept saying it was important, and I'd understand later." Nicholas examined the box. Black roses, he could see them through the transparent lid. Expensive. Rare. Not the kind of arrangement someone sent casually. A small cream envelope was attached to the ribbon with his name written in handwriting he recognized instantly even after 18 years. His throat tightened. "Amanda. What's your name?" he asked quietly, not looking up from the envelope. "Haley. Haley Grant. Grant. Amanda's maiden name." Nicholas felt the world tilt slightly, though his expression remained neutral. He studied the young woman more carefully now, noting things he'd missed in his initial assessment. The shape of her jaw, sharp and defined like his own. The way she held herself with straight posture despite obvious discomfort, refusing to slouch even when exhausted. The green eyes watching him with intelligence that assessed and calculated. His eyes. The intensity. The color. The way they narrowed when focusing. He saw his mother's eyes every time he looked in a mirror, and now he was seeing them in a stranger's face. "How old are you, Haley?" She frowned slightly at the personal question. 18. I graduated high school in May. Why? 18. The timeline aligned perfectly with when Amanda disappeared. Nicholas picked up the envelope with fingers that didn't shake, despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Thank you for the delivery. Marcus will escort you back to your car." "Wait, aren't you going to open it?" "Eventually." He kept his voice even. "You drove 2 hours in this weather. You should get home safely." Haley stood, wrapping her arms around herself. "My mom's really sick. I don't know why this delivery mattered so much to her, but she was crying when she called. I've never heard her that upset. If there's something in that note that's important, maybe you could just tell me everything's okay." Nicholas looked at her directly for the first time since she sat down. Those green eyes pleaded with him, worried about a mother she clearly loved despite not understanding tonight's urgency. Something in his chest constricted painfully. "Everything will be handled appropriately. It was the best reassurance he could offer without lying. Drive carefully. Marcus appeared at the door. Haley glanced between them uncertainly, then nodded and followed the security guard out. Her wet footprints marked the marble floor in a trail leading to the elevator. The moment the office door closed, Nicholas tore open the envelope. Amanda's handwriting covered a single piece of cream cardstock, the letters slightly shaky as if written by an unsteady hand. Nicholas, if you're reading this, Haley delivered the roses safely. She doesn't know what the note says. She doesn't know about you, about us, about any of it. The girl who just left your office is your daughter. I was pregnant when I disappeared 18 years ago. I'm sorry I never told you. I'm sorry for a lot of things, but I'm not sorry I kept her safe. I found the documents in your apartment that night, the ones about the Ferraro shipment and what happened to the witness. I understood then what your world really was. I was 20 years old and terrified, and I was carrying your child. I couldn't bring a baby into that life. I couldn't watch her grow up wondering if she'd lose her father to violence or prison, or worse, if she'd become a target herself. So I ran. I moved to Hartford, used my maiden name, worked 2 jobs until I could open the flower shop. I raised Haley alone, and I told her father left before she was born. It was easier than the truth. I'm dying, Nicholas. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave me 8 to 12 weeks 3 weeks ago. I'm in Yale New Haven Hospital right now, managing pain that won't stop. I don't have time left to do this slowly or carefully. Haley needs protection. She's smart and strong and talented, but she's also alone. When I'm gone, she'll have no one. The flower shop barely makes profit. She turned down a design scholarship in Manhattan to take care of me. And now I'm leaving her with nothing. You have resources I never had. You can keep her safe in ways I couldn't. I'm not asking you to be her father. I don't have that right after what I took from you. I'm asking you to protect her. Please. There's a box of photos and documents at my apartment. 2247 Maple Street, Hartford, Unit 3B. Key is under the blue flower pot on the patio. They'll prove everything if you don't believe me, but I think you saw it in her face the same way I do. She has your eyes, Nicholas, your determination, your stubbornness. I'm sorry I stole 18 years from you. I'm sorry she doesn't know your name. I'm sorry for all of it, but I'm not sorry she exists. And I'm not sorry I kept her away from your world long enough for her to have a childhood. Protect her. That's all I'm asking. Amanda Nicholas read the letter 3 times, his hands perfectly steady even as his pulse hammered against his ribs. 18 years. A daughter. Amanda had been pregnant, and he'd never known, never suspected, never had the chance to choose. He thought back to that time. He'd been 22, ambitious and reckless, rising quickly through the Bellini organization after his father's death. Amanda had been his escape from that world, a nursing student who laughed easily and made him feel almost normal. Then she disappeared without explanation, and he'd eventually moved on because men in his position didn't have the luxury of dwelling on lost relationships. Except she hadn't just left. She'd fled, carrying his child. Nicholas stood abruptly and walked to the windows, staring out at Manhattan's glittering skyline. Somewhere in Connecticut, Amanda was dying in a hospital bed, and somewhere else in Connecticut, probably driving home through the rain right now, was a daughter who didn't know he existed. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Ryan Foster answered on the second ring despite the late hour. Boss, I need complete background on Amanda Grant, age 38, Hartford, Connecticut. She owns Grant Flowers on Main Street. I need medical records from Yale New Haven Hospital confirming cancer diagnosis. I need residential history going back 18 years. I need financial records, employment history, everything. Timeline? Now. Tonight. I don't care who you wake up. A pause. Ryan knew better than to ask questions when Nicholas used that tone. I'll have preliminary information within 2 hours. And Ryan? Total discretion. Nobody outside our inner circle knows about this. Understood. Nicholas hung up and returned to his desk, spreading Amanda's letter flat on the polished surface. He opened the black box, revealing a dozen perfect black roses, their petals dark as ink, their scent rich and slightly bitter. Black roses for death, for endings, for secrets finally revealed. He pulled up security footage from the lobby cameras, rewinding to when Haley entered the building. The timestamp showed 11:43 p.m. He watched her speak to Marcus, clutching the black box protectively. Even in grainy footage, the resemblance was undeniable once he knew to look for it. The way she tilted her head when listening, the set of her shoulders, the sharp focus in her expression. His daughter. The words felt foreign and impossible. Nicholas opened his laptop and searched for Grant Flowers, finding a modest website with photos of arrangements and a small staff page. Amanda's photo showed a woman who'd aged 18 years, but still had the same kind eyes he remembered. Next to her stood Haley, smiling in a green apron, surrounded by flowers. The girl who'd sat in his office 20 minutes ago, worried about her sick mother, and confused about tonight's urgent delivery. She had no idea her entire world was about to change. His phone rang at 1:47 a.m. Ryan's voice was grim. Confirmed. Amanda Grant. Diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 12 weeks ago at Yale New Haven Hospital. Prognosis 8 to 12 weeks. Declined aggressive treatment. Currently admitted for pain management. Before you ask, yes, she's really dying. I spoke to a contact in oncology. There's no coming back from where she is. Nicholas closed his eyes briefly. What else? Grant Flowers established 14 years ago. Modest but stable income. Amanda worked as an ER nurse for 12 years before opening the shop. Daughter Haley Grant, born March 15th, 18 years ago at Hartford Hospital. No father listed on birth certificate. Clean records, honor student, accepted to floral design program at NYU, but declined enrollment. Currently runs the shop with her mother. March 15th. Nicholas calculated quickly. Conceived around June, 18 years ago. The timeline matched perfectly with when Amanda disappeared that summer. I need surveillance on the shop and on Haley Grant starting immediately. Discreet, nothing that will alarm her. 4-person rotation, professionals only. Protection detail? Information gathering for now. I want to know her routine, her contacts, any potential threats in her orbit. And Ryan? Send someone to 2247 Maple Street, Hartford, Unit 3B. There's a box of documents under a blue flower pot on the patio. I want it retrieved and brought here. On it. Boss, if you don't mind me asking, what's this about? Nicholas looked at the black roses on his desk, at Amanda's letter, at the security footage frozen on an image of a young woman with his eyes. Family business. That's all you need to know right now. He hung up and sat in silence for a long time, city lights blinking beyond the windows. 40 years old, head of one of the most powerful criminal organizations on the East Coast. And tonight he'd discovered he had a daughter who'd grown up without his name, without his protection, without any knowledge of who or what he was. Amanda had taken 18 years from him, 18 years of watching Haley grow, of first words and school plays and teenage rebellion, 18 years of being a father. But Amanda had also given Haley 18 years of safety, 18 years away from men like him, away from the violence and fear that came with the Bellini name, away from rivals who would use a child as leverage, away from federal investigations that could destroy families, away from a life where normal was impossible. Nicholas didn't know if he was angry or grateful, maybe both. His phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Surveillance team in place. Subject arrived home safely, 1:52 a.m. Subject. His daughter was now a subject under surveillance. Nicholas rubbed his temples, feeling the beginning of a headache that had nothing to do with the late hour. Tomorrow he would cancel his morning meetings. Tomorrow he would start figuring out how to protect a daughter who didn't know he existed. Tomorrow he would decide what to do about Amanda's request. But tonight, he sat alone in his office surrounded by black roses and 18 years of questions he'd never get to ask, feeling something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in decades. Fear. Nicholas didn't sleep. By the time dawn broke over Manhattan, he'd reviewed Amanda's letter 17 times and watched security footage of Haley's visit on loop, until he'd memorized every gesture, every expression, every nervous shift of weight, as she'd stood dripping water onto his office floor. Friday arrived with gray clouds and persistent drizzle. He canceled his morning meetings without explanation, ignoring the confusion from his lieutenants who weren't accustomed to last-minute schedule changes. Anthony Mancini, his second-in-command, sent 3 increasingly concerned text messages before Nicholas finally responded with a curt, personal matter: handle the Newark shipment yourself. The box from Amanda's apartment arrived at 9:23 a.m. Ryan brought it personally, setting the worn cardboard container on Nicholas's desk without comment. Inside, 18 years of fatherhood he'd never experienced lay preserved in photographs and documents. Baby pictures showed a wrinkled newborn with dark hair and closed eyes. Toddler photos captured a little girl with pigtails grinning gap-toothed at the camera, holding flowers almost as big as she was. School pictures progressed year by year. Kindergarten with missing front teeth, 3rd grade with braces, middle school with awkward bangs, high school with confident smile and those unmistakable green eyes. Nicholas spread them across his desk chronologically, watching his daughter grow up in fast forward. Amanda had documented everything. First day of school photos with handwritten dates on the back, report cards showing straight A's and teacher comments about exceptional student and natural leader, a blue ribbon from a middle school science fair, certificates from floral design competitions. Every milestone he'd missed. His hand stopped on a photo of Haley around age 10, standing in front of what must have been the newly opened Grant Flowers, wearing overalls and holding a watering can. She looked proud and happy. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, smudge of dirt on her cheek. Amanda stood beside her with an arm around her shoulders, both of them laughing. They'd built a life without him. A good life, from what he could see. Haley had grown up loved and safe, away from the violence that defined his world, away from the enemies who would have used her as leverage, away from late-night phone calls about arrests or bodies or wars between families. But she'd also grown up without a father, without knowing where she came from, who she came from. Amanda had made that choice for all of them. Nicholas closed the box carefully and looked at Ryan, who'd been standing silently by the windows. "Tell me everything." Ryan opened a leather folder, his expression professionally neutral. Amanda Christine Grant, born June 3rd, 38 years ago in Hartford. Only child, parents deceased in car accident when she was 22. Worked as ER nurse at Hartford Hospital for 12 years before opening Grant Flowers 14 years ago. Never married, no significant relationships on record. Lived at the same Maple Street address for 16 years. Daughter, Haley Elizabeth Grant, born March 15th, 18 years ago. Father unlisted on birth certificate, attended Hartford Public Schools, graduated with honors last May, accepted to NYU's floral design program with partial scholarship, but declined enrollment in July. Works full-time at Grant Flowers with her mother. 2 other employees, Sarah Mitchell, 55, been with them 11 years. Mia Collins, 16, apprentice hired 8 months ago. Nicholas absorbed the information. Haley had given up college to care for her dying mother. The choice spoke to loyalty and sacrifice, traits he recognized because he'd built his life on them. Medical records? Ryan's expression tightened slightly. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, diagnosed 12 weeks ago. Spread to liver and lymph nodes. She declined chemotherapy after oncologist explained it would only extend her life by a few weeks while making her violently sick. She's currently admitted to Yale New Haven Hospital for pain management. Morphine drip, palliative care only. How long? My contact in oncology says she's got maybe 6 weeks, could be less. This type of cancer moves fast. 6 weeks. Nicholas felt something cold settle in his chest. Amanda was dying, and she'd used her remaining time to bring him a daughter he never knew existed. The timing wasn't coincidence. She was tying up loose ends before she ran out of time. I need to see her. Nicholas stood abruptly. Today. Make it happen. Ryan didn't question the order. I'll call ahead. You'll have private access outside regular visiting hours. Should be ready by 8 tonight. The rest of Friday crawled past with excruciating slowness. Nicholas attempted to focus on legitimate business, reviewing contracts for his restaurant ventures and real estate holdings. But his mind kept drifting to Hartford, to a hospital room where his former lover was dying, to a flower shop where his daughter worked completely unaware of who he was. By 6 o'clock, he'd given up on productivity. He changed into a dark suit and waited, watching the city transition from day to night, lights flickering on across Manhattan's grid like stars appearing in an urban sky. Ryan drove him to New Haven in silence, the SUV eating up miles of highway, while Nicholas stared out at passing scenery without really seeing it. They arrived at Yale New Haven Hospital at 7:52 p.m., entering through a side entrance where a nervous administrator waited to escort them through hallways empty of regular visitors. "Room 847, the administrator said quietly. "I'll make sure you're not disturbed." Nicholas stood outside the closed door for a full minute, hand on the handle, feeling something he hadn't experienced in decades. Uncertainty. Then he pushed it open. The private room was dimly lit, medical equipment beeping softly in the corner. Amanda lay in the bed, and Nicholas barely recognized her. The vibrant woman he'd known 18 years ago had been replaced by someone skeletal and pale, her brown hair thin and limp against the pillow, her green eyes sunken but alert. Those eyes widened when she saw him. "Nicholas!" Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. He moved closer, stopping at the foot of the bed. "Amanda, you got the roses. And the letter." He kept his tone neutral, not ready to reveal the storm of emotions churning beneath controlled exterior. "I got the box, too. The photos." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "Then you know. You saw her. Thursday night. She delivered them herself, confused about why it mattered so much. She has no idea who I am." "I know. I'm sorry." "Sorry." Nicholas let the word hang between them. "You stole 18 years from me. 18 years of my daughter's life. You ran without a word, without giving me a choice, and you think sorry covers it?" Amanda's hands trembled as she adjusted the oxygen tube under her nose. "You would have chosen her over your world? You never gave me the chance to find out. I found the documents, Nicholas. The witness report about the Ferraro shipment. The photos of what happened to him. I understood what you really did, what your family really was." Her voice gained strength despite obvious pain. "I was 20 years old and pregnant. I couldn't raise a baby in that life, so you ran, changed your name, built a whole life somewhere else. Never once thought I deserved to know I had a daughter? Every single day." Amanda's tears spilled over. Every birthday, every milestone, every time she asked about her father and I had to lie. But every time I thought about telling you, I remembered those photos. That witness had a family too. He had kids. And someone made him disappear because he saw something he shouldn't have. Nicholas's jaw clenched. He remembered that case, remembered being 22 and ambitious and convinced he was invincible. He'd been part of the crew that handled the witness. He'd seen things, done things that would have horrified Amanda if she'd known the full extent. "I was a kid playing at being dangerous," he said quietly. "I'm not that person anymore. But you're still in that world, still surrounded by violence and enemies and danger." Amanda coughed, the sound wet and painful. "I gave Haley 18 years of normal, Nicholas. 18 years of school and friends and worrying about grades instead of bullets. That was worth every lie I told." Nicholas moved to the chair beside her bed, sitting down heavily. "Why tell me now? Why not take it to your grave?" "Because I'm dying and she'll be alone." Amanda's voice broke. "The flower shop barely makes enough to cover rent and utilities. She gave up college for me. She doesn't have aunts or uncles or cousins. When I'm gone, she'll have no one. And your world doesn't care about collateral damage. If someone figures out who she is, they'll use her against you. How would anyone figure it out? You buried the connection pretty thoroughly. I thought I did. But she looks like you, Nicholas. Same eyes, same expressions, same way of standing like she's ready for a fight. Someone who knows you well enough would see it eventually." Amanda reached out weakly. "I need you to protect her. That's why I sent the roses. Not to hurt you or ask forgiveness, just to give her a chance to survive what comes after I'm gone." Nicholas looked at Amanda's outstretched hand, so thin he could see every bone and vein. After a long moment, he took it gently. "What do you want me to do?" "Tell her the truth, but carefully, so she doesn't hate me for lying her whole life. Give her security, but don't trap her. She's independent and stubborn." Amanda managed a weak smile. "She gets that from both of us. And let her choose whether she wants you in her life." Don't force it. She might reject me entirely. I know. That's the risk. But at least she'll know where she came from. At least she'll have resources and protection. Amanda coughed again. Harder this time. There's something else. In my nightstand at home, there's an envelope. Instructions for my funeral, accounts, passwords. The shop is in Haley's name already. But there's also a letter for her. Don't give it to her until after I'm gone. Nicholas nodded slowly. All right. Promise me, Nicholas. Promise you'll protect her. Even if she wants nothing to do with you. Promise she'll be safe. He met Amanda's desperate gaze and saw the fear of a dying mother trying to secure her daughter's future. Despite his anger, despite 18 years of lies, he understood that fear. I promise, no one will touch her. Amanda's tears flowed freely now. Thank you. And Nicholas, I am sorry. For all of it. For running. For lying. For taking her from you. But I'm not sorry she exists. She's the best thing I ever did. Tell me about her. The words came out rougher than intended. Tell me who she is. So Amanda did. She talked about Haley's childhood, about scraped knees and school plays and teenage rebellion that consisted mostly of staying out past curfew. She talked about her daughter's talent for flower arrangements, her stubborn determination to make the shop succeed, her kindness to employees and customers. She talked until exhaustion overtook her, and her eyes drooped despite fighting to stay awake. Nicholas sat beside the bed long after Amanda fell asleep, watching machines monitor her failing body. A nurse entered at some point to check vitals, glancing at him nervously before hurrying back out. Ryan had clearly made it known that Nicholas Bellini was not to be disturbed. At 11:34 p.m., he stood and leaned over Amanda one final time. I'll take care of her, he said quietly. You have my word. Amanda didn't wake, but her breathing evened out slightly as if she'd heard anyway. Nicholas left the hospital carrying the weight of promises he wasn't sure how to keep. In the SUV, Ryan asked, Boss? Contact the hospital administration. All of Amanda Grant's medical expenses are covered, no exceptions. Hire the best palliative care specialists available. Make sure she's comfortable. And the daughter. Nicholas looked out at dark highway stretching ahead. Surveillance only for now. I need to figure out how to tell an 18-year-old girl that her entire life is about to change. Ryan nodded and pulled onto the highway. Nicholas leaned back against leather seats, mind racing through scenarios and strategies. He'd built an empire on calculated decisions and careful planning, but there was no playbook for this. Somewhere in Hartford, Haley was probably closing up the flower shop or heading home, completely unaware that her dying mother had just handed her over to the father she never knew existed. Unaware that Nicholas was already arranging protection she didn't know she needed. He thought about the photos in the box, about 18 years of moments he'd never get back. Then he thought about Amanda's fear that someone would discover the connection and use Haley as leverage. She was right to be afraid. The Bellini name came with enemies who wouldn't hesitate to hurt an innocent girl if it served their purposes, which meant Nicholas had limited time to figure out how to protect a daughter who didn't know him, didn't trust him, and had no reason to accept his help. The SUV merged into Manhattan traffic, carrying him back toward his office where contracts and shipments and the normal business of his criminal empire waited. But normal had shifted irrevocably. He had a daughter now, whether she knew it or not. And he would keep her safe, no matter what it cost him. Sunday stretched endlessly. Nicholas sat in his penthouse office with the box of photos spread across his desk like a timeline he couldn't touch. Baby Haley grinning toothlessly. 7-year-old Haley holding a trophy from some school competition. Teenage Haley laughing with friends in front of the flower shop, face lit with genuine happiness he'd never provided. He picked up a photo of her around age 5, wearing a princess costume for Halloween, holding Amanda's hand while trick-or-treating. Amanda looked young and tired, but content. They'd built something real in Hartford, something far from his world of violence and calculated moves. Part of him resented it. The larger part understood why Amanda had run. His phone buzzed at 2:17 p.m. Ryan's name flashed across the screen. We have a problem, Ryan said without preamble. Surveillance team spotted a black Audi sedan circling the flower shop 3 times this morning, parked across the street for 40 minutes, then left. Plates registered to a shell company out of Brighton Beach. Nicholas's blood went cold. Brighton Beach meant Russian. Bratva? Running it through our contacts now, but the methods match. Someone's watching her. How long has this been going on? Unclear. Team only started Friday night. Could be coincidence. Could be they've been there longer. Nicholas stood abruptly, pacing to the windows overlooking Manhattan. Russians had been probing his territory for 2 years, looking for weaknesses they could exploit. The Kozlov faction out of Brooklyn wanted his shipping operations and weren't subtle about their intentions. But how the hell had they connected Haley to him so quickly? Pull financial records on everyone in my inner circle for the past 6 months. Someone talked. Someone always talks. Already on it. I'll have preliminary results by tonight. Nicholas ended the call and immediately dialed another number. Anthony Mancini answered on the 3rd ring. Boss? I need a meeting with our Brighton Beach contact. Today. Tell him it's about territorial boundaries and I'm not in a patient mood. You think the Russians are making a move? I think they're sniffing around where they shouldn't be. Set it up. The meeting happened at a neutral restaurant in Queens at 6:00 p.m. Dmitry Volkov arrived with 2 bodyguards, his weathered face showing amusement at Nicholas's barely controlled anger. They sat in a private room while untouched food grew cold between them. You have something to say, Bellini? Dimitri's accent was thick, his tone mocking. Your people are in Connecticut, Hartford specifically. I want to know why. Dimitri's expression didn't change. Connecticut is open territory. We go where business takes us. There's no business for you in Hartford. Stay out. Or what? You'll start a war over some suburban nothing town? Dmitri leaned back, studying Nicholas carefully. What's in Hartford that has you so nervous? Nicholas kept his face perfectly neutral. I don't get nervous. I'm giving you professional courtesy by telling you directly. Connecticut is off limits. Pass that message to Kozlov. I'll pass it along. Dmitri smiled coldly. But Kozlov doesn't take orders from you. The meeting ended with thinly veiled threats on both sides. Nicholas left, knowing he'd just painted a target on Hartford by showing his hand. But he'd also sent a clear message. Touch what was his, and there would be consequences. Back in Manhattan, Ryan was waiting with a laptop and grim expression. Found your leak. Christopher Morris, your accountant, 48 years old, handles your restaurant finances. He's got gambling debts totaling $200,000 to a bookie with Russian connections. Nicholas felt rage settle cold and heavy in his chest. When did he start talking? At least 3 weeks ago, maybe longer. Phone records show multiple calls to a burner number traced back to Brighton Beach. Get this. He never mentioned your daughter specifically because he didn't know about her. But he mentioned you'd been asking questions about Hartford, Connecticut. About a flower shop on Main Street. Said you seemed personally invested. 3 weeks ago. Before Nicholas even knew Haley existed. Morris had sold speculation and vague details, but it was enough for the Russians to start watching. Enough to put Haley on their radar as something valuable to Nicholas, even if they didn't know why yet. Where is Morris now? Home. Wife and kids are visiting her mother in Boston until Tuesday. He's alone. Nicholas stood without another word. Ryan followed, already knowing what came next. Some problems required permanent solutions. By Monday morning, Christopher Morris no longer had gambling debts or the ability to share information. Nicholas returned to his penthouse at 4 a.m., showered methodically, and made coffee while watching the sun rise over Manhattan. He felt nothing about Morris's death. The man had endangered his daughter. There were no second chances for that. At 9 a.m., he called Ryan again. I want 4-person protection detail in Hartford starting now. Rotation schedule, discrete placement. They need to blend completely. Parameters? 2 positioned as regular customers at the coffee shop across from Grant Flowers. 1 as a delivery driver for the business 2 doors down. 1 as security for the jewelry store on the corner. They watch, they document, they do not engage unless Haley is in immediate danger. And Ryan? Only our most trusted people. No one who might have loose lips. I'll have them in place by noon. Good. And get me everything on Haley's daily routine. When she arrives, when she leaves, where she goes, who she talks to. I need to know her patterns. The surveillance reports started coming in by Monday evening. Haley arrived at the shop at 8 a.m., left at 6:30 p.m. She had lunch at the same deli 3 times a week. She visited her mother at the hospital every evening from 7 to 9 p.m. On her days off, she grocery shopped, did laundry at a laundromat, occasionally met friends for coffee. A normal 18-year-old life. Except now, she had Russian mobsters watching her and a father she didn't know, orchestrating protection she couldn't see. Tuesday afternoon, Nicholas had his weekly meeting with Vanessa Collins at the Crimson Lounge. She managed his most profitable bar with efficiency that rivaled his own, never asking questions about the less legitimate aspects of his business. They'd worked together for 8 years, ever since he'd pulled her out of a trafficking situation in Brooklyn and given her a legitimate job and new identity. Vanessa noticed immediately that something was off. She set down her inventory reports and studied him across the booth. "You look exhausted." "That's not like you." "I'm fine." "You canceled 3 meetings last week. You've been distracted. Anthony thinks you're sick. The others think you're planning something big." She paused. "I think it's personal." Nicholas considered deflecting, then decided Vanessa's insight might be useful. "Family situation. Complicated." Her eyebrows rose. "You have family outside the organization?" "I do now. Recently discovered. It's creating security concerns." Vanessa was quiet for a moment, blue eyes sharp and assessing. "If rivals know about this family, they'll use it as leverage. You need to get ahead of it before someone makes a move. I'm working on it. Work faster. Whatever this is, whoever they are, they're vulnerable as long as you're keeping distance. Bring them close or let them go. But this middle ground is dangerous." Nicholas knew she was right. Staying in the shadows while watching Haley put her at risk, without giving her the resources to defend herself. But approaching her meant revealing everything, meant watching her face when she learned her entire life was built on lies. "I'm planning to make contact Wednesday," he said finally. "Establish a connection under a business pretense. See how she reacts before revealing the truth." "Good. And Nicholas, whatever complicated history is there, remember that family doesn't ask for permission to upend your life. It just does." The words stayed with him through Tuesday night as he reviewed surveillance photos of Haley working in the flower shop, arranging bouquets with focused concentration. In one image, she was laughing at something Sarah said, head thrown back, completely unguarded. In another, she was helping an elderly customer carry flowers to their car, patient and kind, despite obvious busy day. His daughter. The phrase still felt foreign. Wednesday morning, Ryan called with concerning news. "The Russians are getting bolder. 2 different men now, rotating shifts. They're not hiding anymore. One of them went into the coffee shop and sat watching the flower shop for 2 hours yesterday. Our guys recognized him. Viktor Morozov, low-level enforcer for Kozlov. Haley notice anything?" "Hard to say, but Sarah, the older employee, definitely noticed. She mentioned to Haley that some guy had been buying coffee across the street multiple times. Suggested calling the police. Haley brushed it off as nothing." Nicholas swore quietly. The Russians were escalating, testing boundaries, which meant he was out of time for careful planning. He needed to make contact, establish himself as part of Haley's life, before someone made a move that put her in direct danger. "I'm going to Hartford today. Set up a cover as a corporate client looking for weekly floral arrangements for multiple businesses. Make it legitimate enough to pass scrutiny." "Already done. You're representing Bellini Hospitality Group, looking for a florist to service your restaurants and hotels. It's clean, documented, completely above board." At 2:30 p.m., Nicholas stood outside Grant Flowers watching through the window as Haley worked. She wore jeans and a gray t-shirt with the shop logo, hair pulled back in a ponytail, hands moving efficiently as she assembled a wedding centerpiece. Sarah was helping a customer at the counter. A teenage girl, probably Mia, was watering plants near the back. Normal. Simple. Everything his world wasn't. Nicholas took a breath and pushed open the door. A small bell chimed. Haley looked up, and for a split second before recognition set in, he saw his own eyes staring back at him. Then her expression shifted to professional politeness. "Good afternoon. Can I help you?" She didn't remember him from Thursday night. Or more likely, she remembered a tired, wealthy man in an expensive office, not someone who'd show up at her shop in Connecticut. Nicholas was grateful for the anonymity. I'm looking for someone to handle floral arrangements for several of my businesses. Restaurants, hotels, events. I was told Grant Flowers does excellent work. Haley's face brightened with the kind of enthusiasm that came from genuine passion for her craft. We do. Let me show you our portfolio. She gestured to a table near the window, and Nicholas followed, hyper-aware of every detail. The way she moved with unconscious grace. The slight callus on her thumb from handling flower stems. The faint scent of roses and soil that clung to her clothes. His daughter, standing 3 feet away, completely unaware that he'd already promised her dying mother to protect her with his life. So, tell me about your businesses, Haley said, opening a leather portfolio of photos. What kind of aesthetic are you going for? Nicholas forced himself to focus on the cover story, answering her questions while studying her face for traces of himself, of Amanda, of 18 years he'd missed. And all the while, through the window, he could see Viktor Morozov sitting in the coffee shop across the street, watching them both with calculating eyes. The clock was ticking. Nicholas had maybe days before the Russians figured out why Haley mattered, maybe hours before they made a move. He needed her trust, and he needed it fast. Wednesday afternoon arrived with pale sunlight filtering through clouds that threatened more rain. Nicholas stood outside Grant Flowers at 2:30 p.m., watching through the window as Haley worked on what looked like a wedding centerpiece. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, trimming stems and positioning white roses in a crystal vase. Sarah stood at the counter helping an elderly customer, while the teenage girl Mia watered plants near the back wall. A normal scene. The kind of small business interaction that happened thousands of times daily across America. Except Nicholas knew what Haley didn't. Across the street in the coffee shop, Viktor Morozov sat nursing his 3rd espresso of the day, eyes periodically drifting toward the flower shop's entrance. Nicholas had spent the morning reviewing Ryan's latest surveillance reports. The Russians weren't hiding anymore. They'd escalated from passive observation to active interest, which meant Kozlov's people had decided Grant Flowers represented something valuable connected to Nicholas Bellini. They just didn't know what yet. He needed to establish legitimate contact before the Russians made their move. Needed to create a reason for his presence in Haley's life that wouldn't immediately scream vulnerability to anyone watching. Business relationships were clean, explainable, normal. Nicholas pushed open the door. A small bell chimed overhead. Haley looked up from her work, and for a brief moment before professional recognition set in, he saw his own eyes reflected back at him. Then her expression shifted to polite attention. "Good afternoon, can I help you with something?" She didn't recognize him from last Thursday night. Or if she did, she didn't connect the tired man in the expensive Manhattan office with someone who'd appear at her Hartford shop. Nicholas was grateful for the disconnect. "I'm looking for someone to handle floral arrangements for several of my businesses," he said, approaching the counter. "Restaurants, hotels, corporate events. I was told Grant Flowers does quality work." Haley's face brightened immediately, the kind of genuine enthusiasm that came from someone who truly loved their craft. "We do. Let me show you our portfolio." She gestured toward a small table near the window, and Nicholas followed, hyper-aware of every detail. The way she moved with unconscious grace despite being on her feet all day. The slight callus on her right thumb from handling thorny stems. The faint scent of roses and damp soil that clung to her gray shop t-shirt. His daughter, standing 3 feet away, completely unaware that her dying mother had already handed her future into his protection. "So, tell me about your businesses," Haley said, opening a leather portfolio filled with photos of past arrangements. "What kind of aesthetic are you going for?" Nicholas settled into the chair across from her, noting how the afternoon light caught the green in her eyes, making them almost luminous. "I run 5 establishments in Manhattan and 2 in northern New Jersey. High-end restaurants mostly, 1 boutique hotel. I want something sophisticated but not pretentious. Natural, but polished. That's actually my favorite kind of brief." Haley flipped through pages showing centerpieces in warm earth tones, minimalist arrangements with clean lines, seasonal displays that emphasized texture over flash. A lot of corporate clients want big and loud, but the really elegant spaces understand that flowers should complement the environment, not compete with it. She spoke with confidence that surprised him. This wasn't a teenager playing at running a business. This was someone who'd absorbed years of knowledge and developed her own design philosophy. "Your mother taught you?" Nicholas asked, carefully casual. "Since I was 4 years old." Haley's expression softened. She'd let me sit at the work table and make terrible little bouquets while she handled real orders. By the time I was 12, I could do basic arrangements. By 16, customers were requesting my work specifically. Nicholas watched her hands as she talked, gesturing to emphasize points about color theory and seasonal availability. Those were Amanda's hands, long-fingered and expressive. But the way she used them, direct and purposeful, that came from him. "She's not well now," he said quietly. Haley's hands stilled on the portfolio. "No, she's in the hospital. Has been for a few weeks." She looked up, meeting his eyes directly. "Which is why landing contracts like this matters. I need to prove the shop can sustain itself even when she's not here to run it." The honesty caught him off guard. She could have deflected, maintained professional distance. Instead, she'd given him a window into the pressure she was carrying. 18 years old, mother dying, business barely profitable, and still she showed up every day and made it work. Pride swelled in his chest. Unexpected and fierce. This was his daughter. Amanda had raised someone strong. The door opened with another chime, and an agitated middle-aged man entered carrying an empty box. He walked straight to the counter, ignoring Nicholas entirely. "This is unacceptable, Haley." He slammed the box down. The flowers arrived wilted again. "My wife says if this happens one more time, we're going back to that place on Broad Street." Haley stood immediately, her professional mask clicking into place. "Mr. Wells, let me see the box." She crossed to the counter, and Nicholas watched the interaction carefully. Sarah appeared beside Haley, clearly protective of her young boss. The older woman's jaw was tight, with barely contained irritation. "The delivery left here in perfect condition," Sarah said firmly. "I checked it myself." "And someone ruined it in transit," Wells snapped. "I don't care whose fault it is, I paid for decent flowers." Haley picked up the box, examining the interior. Her fingers traced the moisture level, checked the way the stems had been packed. Nicholas recognized the assessment process of someone trained to find problems and solve them efficiently. "Mr. Wells, I understand your frustration." Haley's voice remained calm, but carried authority that belied her age. "We take pride in every arrangement that leaves this shop. If something went wrong with the delivery, we want to make it right." She pulled out an order form, checking dates and delivery times. Nicholas saw the moment she identified the probable issue, a slight narrowing of her eyes that he recognized because he made the same expression when analyzing problems. "I'm going to remake your arrangement at no charge," Haley said, meeting Wells's eyes directly. "And I'll personally review our delivery procedures with the driver today. But I need you to do something for me. If this happens again, call us immediately while the flowers are still fresh. That way, I can see exactly what went wrong and fix it." The response balanced firmness with diplomacy. Wells muttered something that might have been agreement, and left with a promise of new flowers within 2 hours. Sarah exhaled loudly, clearly holding back less polite commentary. Mia had watched the whole interaction wide-eyed from her position near the back. "That happens more than it should," Sarah said quietly. "People who don't know how to care for flowers and blame us when they die." Haley murmured something reassuring to the older woman, then returned to Nicholas with an apologetic expression. "Sorry about that. Not the most professional display for a potential client. You handled it well." Nicholas studied her face. "You kept the customer and maintained your team's respect. That's not easy." Haley seemed genuinely surprised by the observation, a faint flush rising in her cheeks. For a moment, the confident professional faded, and he saw the 18-year-old who wasn't used to praise from anyone outside her small circle. "It's just part of running the place," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "When Mom got too sick to work full days, I had to learn fast. This shop is everything we have. Everything we have." The words hit harder than she could know. Nicholas glanced out the window where Victor was shifting position in the coffee shop, clearly trying for a better angle to observe them. Time to move this forward before the Russians moved first. "Here's what I'm thinking," Nicholas said, pulling Haley's attention back to business. A 3-month trial contract, reception arrangements, and 2 featured displays for each of my 7 locations. If the quality matches what I'm seeing here, we expand to full service. Haley's eyes lit up before professional caution reasserted itself. 3 months is perfect. Gives us time to adjust to your style preferences. Work out logistics. She pulled a standard contract from a folder, pen already in hand. I'll need some information. Company name, tax ID, delivery addresses, preferred timing. Nicholas provided the details for Bellini Hospitality Group, his legitimate business front. Everything checked out clean for any audit or investigation. Nothing in the documentation pointed to the criminal empire that funded it. Sarah approached with 2 cups of coffee on a small tray. For you both. Client this size deserves real hospitality. Sarah, Haley protested mildly, but she was smiling. Nicholas accepted the cup, noting how Sarah positioned herself slightly between him and Haley. Protective. Watchful. The kind of employee who'd notice if something seemed wrong and wouldn't hesitate to act. He filed that away as both complication and potential asset. Thank you, he said simply. Sarah nodded and retreated after giving him one more assessing look. Haley filled out the contract with practiced efficiency, asking clarifying questions about delivery schedules and payment terms. When she slid it across for his signature, Nicholas signed Nicholas Bellini in clear, controlled script. She glanced at the signature, then at him. Nicholas Bellini. So you're the owner, not just a representative? I prefer to handle important contracts personally. That's refreshing. She stapled the pages together neatly. Most big companies send assistants for this part. I'm not most people. Something in his tone made her look up sharply, as if trying to decode a meaning beneath the words. Nicholas held her gaze steadily, seeing his own intensity reflected back at him. After a moment, she looked away first, collecting the signed paperwork. We'll start deliveries next week, she said. If you want, I can bring a sample arrangement to one of your locations tomorrow. That way you can approve the style before we commit to full production. The offer gave him exactly what he needed. Another meeting. This time on his territory where security was absolute. Bring it to my administrative office in Midtown. He pulled a business card from his wallet, sliding it across the table. 2nd floor. Ask for me at reception. Haley studied the card. Simple design, just his name, title, phone number, and address. Nothing flashy. I can do tomorrow afternoon, she said. Work here in the morning, prep the arrangement, then drive down. 2 hours from Hartford to Manhattan. Nicholas calculated rapidly. He'd need to increase security at the building. Have Ryan coordinate surveillance on her route. Ensure Victor or whoever replaced him didn't attempt to follow. That works. He stood, extending his hand. Looking forward to seeing what you create. Her handshake was firm, confident. Her palm was warm and slightly rough from work. For a brief second, Nicholas felt the absurdity of the situation, shaking hands with his own daughter as if they were strangers conducting a business transaction, when what he really wanted was to tell her the truth, to explain everything, to promise he'd protect her from the storm he could see building. But that would come later. First, he had to secure her trust, the only way that wouldn't immediately frighten her away. Thanks for the opportunity, Haley said. Mom's going to be thrilled when I tell her we landed a contract with 7 locations in Manhattan. Nicholas felt his chest tighten at the mention of Amanda. When you see her, tell her the quality of her business impressed someone with high standards. Haley smiled, genuine warmth lighting her face. She'll love that. She's always worried the standards will slip with her in the hospital. He wanted to say more. Wanted to ask about Amanda's condition, about how Haley was handling the weight of knowing her mother was dying. But that crossed the line from professional interest into personal territory he hadn't earned yet. I'll see you tomorrow, he said instead. Nicholas walked out into the gray afternoon, hyper-aware of Victor's attention tracking him from the coffee shop. He crossed to his car where Ryan waited behind the wheel, not looking back at the flower shop, even though every instinct wanted one more glimpse of the daughter he'd just met. He got in the back seat and waited until they'd turned the corner before speaking. He saw everything. Saw you enter, saw you sit down, saw contract papers on the table. Ryan merged into traffic smoothly. Couldn't hear the conversation, but for someone like him, visual confirmation of your interest is enough. Nicholas watched Hartford scroll past the window. Business interest is explainable. The problem comes when they figure out it's more than that. Which is why you need to move faster with her, Ryan said. Get her somewhere secure before they connect the dots. She's coming to the office tomorrow afternoon. Bringing a sample arrangement? Ryan's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. You want full security protocol? Discreet but absolute. I want eyes on her from the moment she leaves Hartford until she's back home. And Ryan, make sure our people know she's priority protection. Not just surveillance anymore. Copy that. Boss, when are you planning to tell her? Nicholas stared at his reflection in the tinted window. Soon, but not until I'm sure she's safe. Amanda made me promise to let Haley choose whether she wants me in her life. Can't make that choice if she's dead because I moved too fast. They drove in silence for a while, highway miles disappearing beneath them. Nicholas pulled out his phone and opened the folder of photos Ryan had compiled. Haley at various ages, growing from baby to child to teenager, to the young woman he'd just met. 18 years compressed into digital images. His phone buzzed with a text from Anthony Mancini. Russians asking questions about your Connecticut interests. Want me to send message? Nicholas typed back. No. Let them wonder. But double security on all Hartford assets. He pocketed the phone and closed his eyes, the day's tension finally catching up. Tomorrow Haley would walk into his world, even if she didn't know it yet. Tomorrow he'd see her surrounded by his people, his security, the framework of power and protection he'd built over 20 years. And somewhere in the days after that, he'd have to find words to tell an 18-year-old girl that her entire life was built on a lie, that her father wasn't dead or absent but had been 40 miles away in Manhattan the whole time, and that knowing him meant accepting a world of violence and danger she'd been carefully sheltered from. But first, he'd keep her alive long enough to have that conversation. The SUV carried him back toward Manhattan, while behind them, in a small flower shop in Hartford, Haley Grant probably had no idea that signing a contract that afternoon had just made her the most protected person in Connecticut, whether she wanted to be or not. Friday afternoon crawled toward 4:30 p.m. with the kind of humid stillness that preceded storms. Haley had sent Sarah home early for a doctor's appointment, leaving just herself and Mia to handle the last hour before closing. Traffic outside was light, most people already heading home for the weekend. Inside Grant Flowers, Haley worked on final touches for tomorrow's delivery to Nicholas Bellini's office. She'd chosen cream-colored roses mixed with eucalyptus and white ranunculus, arranged in a low rectangular vessel that would work on a reception desk without blocking sightlines. Elegant, understated, exactly what he'd described wanting. Mia was in the back room organizing supply shelves, her voice occasionally drifting forward as she hummed along to music playing from her phone. The 16-year-old had been working at the shop for 8 months, eager to learn and surprisingly dedicated for someone her age. Haley stepped back to examine the arrangement from different angles. The contract with Bellini Hospitality Group represented the biggest account they'd landed in 2 years. Her mother would be thrilled when Haley visited the hospital tonight and shared the news. Amanda had built this business from nothing, and even from a hospital bed, she worried constantly about its survival. The front door's bell chimed. Haley looked up with her professional smile already in place, expecting a last-minute customer. 2 men entered. Both wore dark jackets despite the warm weather. Both had the kind of hard eyes that made something cold settle in Haley's stomach. The first man was tall with a shaved head, the second shorter but broader through the shoulders. Neither looked like they'd ever bought flowers in their lives. "We're actually about to close," Haley said, keeping her voice friendly but firm. "But if you need something quick, I can help." The tall one looked around the shop slowly, assessing. When his eyes came back to Haley, they were flat and calculating. "You're Haley Grant?" Warning bells screamed in her head. She shifted her weight slightly, putting herself between the men and the back room where Mia was still working. "Can I help you with something specific? You can come with us." The shorter man moved closer to the counter. Nice and quiet. Nobody gets hurt. Haley's heart slammed against her ribs. Every self-defense class she'd taken in high school suddenly felt useless in the face of 2 men who clearly knew what they were doing. "I don't know what you want, but you need to leave. Now." "Not without you." The tall one reached inside his jacket. Haley's hand found the silent alarm button Nicholas's people had installed just 2 days ago. She'd thought it was excessive when the technician showed up claiming to be upgrading the security system as part of the new contract. Now, she pressed it hard enough to hurt her thumb. "Mia!" Haley shouted toward the back. "Lock yourself in the supply room. Now!" She heard the teenager's startled gasp, then the sound of rapid footsteps and a door slamming. The deadbolt clicked. The shorter man vaulted over the counter with disturbing ease. Haley grabbed the nearest heavy object, a ceramic vase, and threw it at his head. He ducked, and it shattered against the wall behind him. "Difficult makes this worse for you," he said, accent thick with Russian inflection. Haley ran for the back, not toward Mia's locked room, but toward the cold storage where they kept bulk flour shipments. Her fingers found the handle, and she yanked the heavy door open, diving inside and slamming it shut. The lock was industrial, meant to prevent people from being trapped inside accidentally. She flipped it, sealing herself in. Immediate cold enveloped her. The storage unit maintained a constant 38 degrees. Haley's breath came out in visible puffs as she pressed her back against shelves of wrapped rose bundles, phone already in her hand. Through the thick door, she heard muffled shouting in Russian. Something heavy slammed against the outside of the cold storage. The door shuddered but held. Haley's fingers shook as she tried to unlock her phone. 3 failed attempts before she got the code right. Who did she call? Police? But what would she tell them? 2 men tried to take her and she didn't know why. The door shuddered again. Harder this time. Then she heard something else. New voices, sharp and commanding. The sound of a scuffle. Something that might have been a body hitting the floor. Silence. Haley hugged herself, teeth starting to chatter from cold and adrenaline. How long had it been? 3 minutes? 5? Time felt distorted in the dim emergency lighting of the storage unit. A voice came through the door. American accent. Calm and professional. "Miss Grant, I'm with Mr. Bellini's security team. The threat has been neutralized. You can come out safely." Haley didn't move. For all she knew, this was a trick to get her to open the door. "Miss Grant, my name is Ryan Foster. I'm going to slide my identification under the door." A laminated card appeared in the gap between door and floor. Haley crouched down, still shaking, and picked it up. "Professional security license, photo ID and company name, Bellini Security Services. The men who entered your shop have been detained," Ryan continued. "But you need to come out before hypothermia becomes an issue." "How long have you been in there?" "I don't know." Her voice came out thin and scared. "Maybe 5 minutes. That's long enough in storage temperature. I'm going to ask you to unlock the door and step out slowly. I'll be alone, weapon holstered. You'll see that the shop is secure." Haley's hand hovered over the lock. Every instinct screamed not to trust anyone, but she was also starting to lose feeling in her fingers and toes. She flipped the lock and eased the door open a crack. A man in his mid-30s stood 3 feet back, hands visible and empty, wearing a dark suit with an earpiece. Behind him, the shop looked like a crime scene. One of the attackers lay unconscious near the counter, zip-tied and bleeding from his nose. The other was similarly restrained near the entrance. 2 more men in suits stood guard over them. "Miss Grant, you're safe now." Ryan's voice was steady, the kind of calm that came from extensive training. "But we need to move you to a secure location immediately. Mr. Bellini is on his way. What the hell is happening?" Haley stepped out of the cold storage, wrapping her arms around herself. "Who were those men? Why did they want me? We'll explain everything. But not here. Is anyone else in the building?" "Mia, my employee. She's locked in the supply room." Ryan nodded to one of the other men, who moved toward the back. Haley heard him speaking gently through the door, coaxing Mia out. The teenager appeared moments later, face white with terror. When she saw Haley, she burst into tears and ran forward. Haley caught her, holding the shaking girl while her own mind tried to process what had just happened. "I called my parents," Mia sobbed. "They're coming." "What's going on? Who are these people?" "I don't know," Haley said honestly. She looked at Ryan. "She needs to get home safely. Already arranged. My colleague will escort her to her parents and ensure they're not followed." The front door opened again, and Nicholas Bellini walked in. He wore a black suit and carried himself with the kind of controlled intensity that made everyone in the room unconsciously shift to give him space. His eyes found Haley immediately, scanning her from head to toe in rapid assessment. "Are you hurt?" "No, cold, but not hurt." Haley was surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "Mia's scared, but okay." Nicholas looked at the unconscious men on the floor, then at Ryan. "Status?" "2 confirmed Bratva enforcers. Armed, but we intercepted before they could use weapons. Miss Grant activated the panic system and secured herself in cold storage. The younger employee locked herself in the supply room. No civilian casualties. Good." Nicholas's jaw was tight with barely contained rage. "Get these 2 to the secure location. I want to know who sent them and what they know. Contact Mia's parents directly. Ensure they understand their daughter is safe, and that we'll provide private security for 48 hours as a precaution." Mia looked between them, confused and terrified. Haley squeezed her hand. "It's going to be okay. Go with this man. He'll take you to your parents." The teenager nodded shakily and left with one of the suited men. That left Haley alone with Nicholas, Ryan, and one remaining security guard who was efficiently photographing the scene. "Miss Grant, we need to leave," Nicholas said. "Now, before anyone else shows up. I'm not going anywhere until someone explains what just happened." Haley's fear was rapidly converting to anger. 2 armed men walk into my shop demanding I go with them. Your security team appears out of nowhere like you were expecting this. And now you want me to just follow you without questions? You pressed the panic button I had installed. My team responded within 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes are why you're standing here unharmed instead of being used as leverage against me. Leverage for what? We signed a business contract 2 days ago. Why would that make me a target? Nicholas and Ryan exchanged a look that made Haley's stomach drop. There was something they weren't saying. Something big. "This isn't the place for that conversation," Nicholas said. "I have a secure facility in Manhattan where we can talk properly, where you'll be protected while we handle the immediate threat. I'm not getting in a car with you until I understand what's happening." "Miss Grant." "My name is Haley," she interrupted. "And I need answers right now, or I'm calling the police." Nicholas was quiet for a long moment, studying her face with an intensity that felt like it could see through skin and bone straight to her thoughts. When he spoke, his voice was lower, almost gentle. "The men who attacked you today are Russian organized crime. They targeted you because they believe you're important to me. They're not entirely wrong, though not for the reasons they think. But this conversation cannot happen here in an unsecured location where we're vulnerable." "Important to you how? A florist you just hired?" "It's more complicated than that." "Then uncomplicate it." Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Boss, we really need to move. Victor will report the failure, and they'll send backup." Nicholas made a decision. "Fine. Haley, I knew your mother 18 years ago. I need you to come with me so I can explain what that means and why it puts you in danger. I'm asking you to trust me for the next hour. After that, if you want to walk away, I'll ensure you have protection, but I won't force you to stay." Haley's mind was racing. Her mother, 18 years ago. She would have been 20. The same time she told Haley her father had left. No, that was impossible. She looked at Nicholas's face, really looked this time. The dark eyes that matched her own. The strong jaw. The intensity that people had always said reminded them of Haley when she was focused on something. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Not here," Nicholas said firmly. "Come with me. I promise you'll be safe." Haley's legs felt unsteady. The shop around her seemed to tilt. Armed men had tried to kidnap her. Nicholas Bellini had security teams monitoring her. Her mother had known him 18 years ago. The math was too obvious to ignore. "Did my mom send you those flowers?" The question came out before she could stop it. Nicholas's expression confirmed everything before he spoke. Yes. The world narrowed to a single point of impossible reality. Haley heard herself say, "We need to go," without fully processing the decision. Ryan moved immediately, guiding her toward the door. Nicholas stayed close to her other side. The remaining guard swept the street before nodding clearance. A black SUV waited at the curb, engine running. Haley got in the back seat because her body was operating on autopilot, while her brain tried to catch up with the implications of what Nicholas had just confirmed. He slid in beside her. Ryan took the front passenger seat. The vehicle pulled away from Grant Flowers at precisely 4:47 p.m. Haley stared out the window, watching her shop disappear, yellow police tape already being strung across the entrance by the remaining security team. Everything she knew about her life had just shifted violently sideways. Nicholas sat silent beside her, giving her space to process. After several blocks, he spoke quietly. "I'm sorry this happened. I was trying to establish a relationship gradually, give you time to adjust before revealing everything. The Russians forced my hand." "Who were they?" Haley's voice sounded distant to her own ears. "Bratva, Russian organized crime. They've been probing my organization for weaknesses. When I started showing interest in your shop, they assumed you were valuable to me. They weren't wrong. Because I'm your daughter." The word hung in the air between them. Nicholas didn't deny it. "Yes, because you're my daughter." Haley closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were already on the highway heading toward Manhattan. Her normal life receding in the rearview mirror with every mile. "Does my mom know you're doing this?" "She asked me to protect you. That's why she sent the flowers. She's dying, Haley. She wanted to make sure you weren't alone when she's gone." The confirmation of what Haley had been trying not to accept for weeks hit her like a physical blow. "How long does she have?" "Weeks. Maybe less." Haley turned to look at him fully for the first time since getting in the car. "And you're what? My father who's been in New York this whole time while she raised me alone? I didn't know you existed until last Thursday when you delivered those roses. Your mother never told me she was pregnant." The quiet devastation in his voice sounded genuine. Haley wanted to hate him, wanted to rage at 18 years of absence, but the math supported his claim. Her birthday was in March. The roses arrived last week. If he was telling the truth, he'd only known about her for 8 days. "This is insane," she said finally. "Yes, but it's also real. And right now, keeping you alive is more important than processing the emotional complexity." They drove in tense silence. Haley's phone buzzed repeatedly. She looked down to see texts from customers, from friends asking if she was okay, from someone claiming to be a reporter who'd heard about an incident at her shop. "Don't answer those," Nicholas said. "Ryan's team is handling the official story. As far as anyone knows, it was an attempted robbery and you're cooperating with police. What's the real story?" "The real story is that you're Nicholas Bellini's daughter, which makes you either an asset or a liability to half the criminal organizations on the East Coast. The real story is that I'm going to eliminate anyone who tries to use you against me. And the real story is that your normal life ended the moment those men walked into your shop." Haley looked out at the Manhattan skyline growing larger ahead of them. Somewhere in this city was the father she'd never known. Somewhere in a Connecticut hospital was the mother who'd kept them apart. And somewhere behind them, in a flower shop she might never return to, was the person she'd been before everything changed. The SUV stopped in an underground garage beneath a glass building in Midtown. Haley had lost track of time during the drive from Hartford, her mind still caught between the image of 2 armed men in her flower shop and Nicholas Bellini's quiet admission that he was her father. They took a private elevator that required a keycard to operate. It didn't stop at any other floors, rising directly to the 23rd level. Ryan stood at the front, speaking quietly into a radio. Nicholas remained silent beside her, hands in his pockets, jaw set in a hard line. The apartment they brought her to looked like an expensive hotel suite designed for temporary guests. Open-plan living area with gray sectional sofa, pristine kitchen with marble countertops, bedroom separated by frosted glass walls, bathroom with polished fixtures and untouched towels. No personal photos, no books left on tables, nothing suggesting anyone actually lived here. "This is a guest apartment," Ryan explained. "Secure entrance, private elevator, 24-hour security in the lobby and on the roof. Nobody gets up here without passing through 3 security checkpoints." Haley walked slowly around the space, arms wrapped around herself. "So, I'm what? A prisoner in a luxury cell?" "You're protected," Nicholas corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there? Because I can't go home, can't go to my shop, can't see my employees without armed guards watching." Her voice rose with frustration that had been building since the attack. 2 hours ago, I was arranging flowers. Now I'm here, and you're telling me I'm your daughter, and Russian mobsters want to kidnap me. Forgive me if I'm having trouble seeing the upside. Nicholas's expression didn't change. but something flickered in his eyes. I understand you're angry. Angry doesn't even begin to cover it. Haley turned to face him fully. You want me to just accept this? Accept that you're my father based on what? Your word? My mother sent flowers with a note and that's supposed to be proof? No. Nicholas pulled his phone from his pocket. Which is why I'm offering you concrete evidence. DNA test, processed at an independent lab, results in 72 hours. If you want proof before we have any further conversation, I'll arrange it immediately. The offer caught her off guard. She'd expected deflection or demands that she simply trust him. Instead, he was giving her exactly what any rational person would need. And if I refuse the test, if I just want to leave, then Ryan will escort you anywhere you want to go, and I'll assign a security detail to keep you safe from a distance. But Haley, refusing to know the truth doesn't make you less of a target. The Russians already believe you're valuable to me. That puts you in danger whether you accept our connection or not. The logic was infuriatingly sound. Haley sank onto the gray sofa, exhaustion finally catching up with adrenaline. Fine. Do the test. Nicholas nodded to Ryan, who made a quick call. Within 10 minutes, a woman in professional medical scrubs arrived with a testing kit. She was efficient and courteous, swabbing Haley's cheek and then Nicholas's, labeling samples with codes rather than names. Results in 3 business days, the woman confirmed before leaving. Silence settled over the apartment after she left. Ryan had disappeared into what looked like a security office attached to the main room. Haley and Nicholas sat on opposite sides of the living area. The space between them filled with 18 years of questions neither knew how to ask. You said my mother is dying, Haley finally said. How do you know? When did you see her? Nicholas leaned back in his chair. Saturday night. I went to Yale New Haven Hospital after I received the roses. She's in palliative care for stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The confirmation hit Haley like a physical blow, even though she'd suspected the truth for weeks. Her mother had been vague about her prognosis, always deflecting when Haley asked direct questions. How long? Her doctors estimate 4 to 6 weeks. Maybe less. Haley closed her eyes, fighting tears. And she sent you to find me because she knew she was running out of time. She was trying to protect you. She believed that when she's gone, you'd be vulnerable. She asked me to keep you safe. Safe from what? I'm a florist in Hartford. I'm nobody. You're my daughter. That makes you somebody whether you want to be or not. Nicholas's voice was quiet but firm. My enemies will use any leverage they can find. Family is the most effective leverage there is. Then maybe you should have stayed away from me. Let me keep being nobody. I considered it, but your mother was right. The connection exists whether I acknowledge it or not. Leaving you unprotected wouldn't make you safer. It would just make you an easier target. Haley opened her eyes and studied him across the room. He looked tired despite the controlled posture. Shadows under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept much lately. What did she tell you about me? That you're stubborn and independent. That you turned down a scholarship to stay and help her. That you've been running the flower shop almost single-handedly for months while she's been sick. He paused. That you're the best thing she ever did. The words broke something in Haley's chest. She turned away, not wanting him to see her cry. I need to see her. I need to talk to my mom. We can arrange that. But Haley, she's very weak. The medication makes her sleep most of the time. And she asked me not to let you visit until after the DNA results come back. Why? Because she wanted you to have proof before you confronted her about 18 years of lies. She didn't want you questioning whether she was telling the truth while she's dying. The consideration was so typically her mother that Haley almost laughed. Even at the end, Amanda Grant was trying to protect her daughter from unnecessary pain. She really thought this through. She had 3 months to plan it after her diagnosis. The roses, the timing, the way she wanted me to approach you. She orchestrated everything. Footsteps sounded from the security office, and Ryan emerged carrying a duffel bag. I had someone collect clothes and personal items from Miss Grant's apartment. Toiletries, phone charger, some books from her nightstand. Haley accepted the bag numbly. You went to my apartment? We've had eyes on your residence since Monday, Ryan said matter-of-factly. Standard security protocol once the Russians started surveillance on the flower shop. Monday? I only met Nicholas on Wednesday. We knew about you before that, Nicholas said. We've been monitoring potential threats since the day after you delivered the roses. The revelation should have made her angry, but Haley was too exhausted to summon outrage. So you've been watching me for over a week. What else do you know? That you visit your mother every evening from 7 to 9. That you buy coffee from the same deli 3 times a week. That you do laundry at the 24-hour wash on Sundays. That you turn down drinks with friends twice in the past week to work on orders. Nicholas's expression was unreadable. I know the shape of your life, Haley, but I don't know you yet. The distinction felt important somehow. He'd gathered facts, but not understanding. Information, but not connection. Before Haley could respond, the apartment door opened and a woman entered carrying several bags of takeout food. She was maybe 28, blonde hair pulled back in a professional ponytail, blue eyes that assessed the room with practiced efficiency. She wore dark jeans and a fitted blazer that couldn't quite hide the defensive training in how she moved. Vanessa Collins, Nicholas said by way of introduction. She manages one of my businesses and has agreed to stay with you while you're here. Vanessa set the food on the kitchen counter and offered Haley a genuine smile. I figured you probably haven't eaten. I brought options since I didn't know what you liked. The kindness in her voice nearly undid Haley completely. Thank you. I'll leave you two to get settled, Nicholas said, standing. Vanessa has my direct number. If you need anything, call. Ryan's team is monitoring the building, but you won't see them unless there's a problem. He moved toward the door, and Haley surprised herself by calling after him. Nicholas? He turned, and for a moment she saw something in his expression that looked almost vulnerable. When the DNA results come back, if they confirm what you're saying, we need to talk. Really talk. About everything. Agreed. He nodded once. Try to rest, Haley. We have time now. After he left, Vanessa started unpacking the food with comfortable efficiency. I know this is overwhelming, but for what it's worth, I've worked with Nicholas for 8 years. He's not always great with emotions or explanations, but he keeps his promises. If he said he'll protect you, he will. Haley watched her arrange containers on the counter. How did you end up working for him? Long story, but the short version is that he pulled me out of a very bad situation when I was 20 and gave me a legitimate job when nobody else would. I owe him my life. Not in the dramatic way people say it, but literally. You trust him. Completely. Which is rare in this world. Vanessa handed Haley a plate. Eat. Then we can talk or not talk, whatever you need. I'm here to help, not interrogate. Over the next 3 days, Haley existed in a strange limbo. She stayed in the apartment, ate meals Vanessa brought, slept fitful hours in the unfamiliar bed. Ryan visited twice daily with updates about the flower shop, which remained closed for repairs after the incident. Sarah and Mia were safe, receiving full pay, being told that Haley was cooperating with police and would reopen when it was safe. Vanessa proved to be unexpectedly good company. She didn't push for conversation but engaged when Haley wanted to talk. She shared carefully edited stories about Nicholas that painted him as demanding but fair, protective of his people, capable of surprising kindness beneath the intimidating exterior. He's different since he found out about you, Vanessa said on the second evening. More careful with how he plans things. I've never seen him second-guess decisions before. He's probably regretting getting involved with my mother 18 years ago. I don't think so. I think he's trying to figure out how to be a father when he's spent his entire adult life being a boss. The skill sets don't overlap as much as you'd think. On Tuesday afternoon, Ryan arrived with a sealed envelope. Nicholas appeared 10 minutes later. They sat in the living room, the envelope between them on the coffee table like a bomb nobody wanted to trigger. Before we open that, Haley said, I need you to tell me what happened between you and my mother. The real story. Nicholas took a slow breath. I was 22. She was 20. We dated for about 8 months. I was working my way up in the family business. She was in nursing school. I thought I was keeping the 2 parts of my life separate, but she found documents I'd left in my apartment. Details about a criminal case that made it very clear what I really did. And she ran. She ran. I came home one day and she was gone. No note, no explanation, no trace. I looked for her for a while, but eventually I moved on. I never knew she was pregnant. If you had known, I would have found her. I would have demanded to be part of your life. His voice was quiet, but certain. I don't know if I would have been a good father. I don't know if I could have given you anything close to normal, but I would have tried. Haley studied his face, looking for deception and finding none. My mother told me my father left before I was born. She said he wasn't ready to be a parent. She wasn't entirely wrong. I wasn't ready, but I didn't leave. I never had the chance to try. The honesty in his admission made something shift in Haley's chest. She reached for the envelope, tearing it open with fingers that barely shook. The lab report was straightforward and clinical. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. She handed the paper to Nicholas without comment. He read it, folded it carefully, and set it down. "So it's real," Haley said. "It's real. I want to see my mother, today. I need to hear this from her." Nicholas pulled out his phone. "I'll arrange it." 2 hours later, they were in Yale New Haven Hospital's private wing. Nicholas had somehow secured visiting privileges outside normal hours. Vanessa came with them, staying in the waiting room while Nicholas and Haley approached Amanda's room. "Do you want me to come in?" Nicholas asked outside the door. "Not yet. Let me talk to her first." He nodded and stepped back. Haley pushed open the door to find her mother awake, looking impossibly fragile in the hospital bed. Amanda's eyes widened when she saw her daughter. "Haley, baby, what are you doing here?" "It's not visiting hours." Nicholas arranged it. Haley moved to the bedside, taking her mother's hand. "Mom, we need to talk." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "He told you." "He showed me. We did a DNA test. It came back positive." Haley's voice cracked. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because I was protecting you. Because his world is dangerous and I wanted you to have a normal life." Amanda squeezed Haley's hand weakly. "Are you angry?" "I'm a lot of things. Angry is one of them. But mostly I'm scared because you're dying, and everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. And now there are people trying to kidnap me and I don't know how to process any of it. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I didn't prepare you better. I thought I had more time." They cried together, mother and daughter, holding hands while machines beeped softly in the background. Eventually, Amanda pulled herself together enough to ask, "Is he treating you well?" "He's protective. Intense. He put me in a secure apartment with round-the-clock security." "That's good. That's what I asked him to do." Amanda's breathing was labored. "He's not perfect, Haley. His world is dark and complicated. But he'll keep you safe. That's all I care about now." "Mom, let me finish. You have a choice to make. You can accept his protection and learn about that side of your family. Or you can walk away, build your own life, keep your distance. Either way, he'll make sure you're secure. But I think you should give him a chance. Not for me, for you. You deserve to know where you come from." Haley wiped her eyes. "What if I can't handle his world? Then you'll figure that out together. You're stronger than you think, baby. You always have been." They talked until Amanda grew too tired to continue, her words slurring with medication. Haley kissed her forehead and promised to visit again soon. Nicholas was waiting in the hallway when she emerged. "How is she?" "Weak. But she wanted me to know she doesn't regret asking you to help." Haley looked up at him. "She thinks I should give you a chance. What do you think?" "I think I'm terrified and angry and confused. But I also think you kept your word about protecting me. And I think my mom is dying and I don't have time to waste being stubborn about this." She took a breath. "So yes, I'll give you a chance. But I need honesty from you. No more surveillance I don't know about. No more decisions made for me without explanation. If we're doing this, we do it as equals." Nicholas studied her for a long moment. Equals might be difficult given the security requirements. But partners, maybe. We make decisions together where possible. I can work with that. He extended his hand. After a brief hesitation, Haley shook it. The gesture felt absurdly formal for a father and daughter. But it also felt like the beginning of something neither of them quite knew how to navigate. As they walked back toward the elevator where Vanessa waited, Haley realized her life had irrevocably changed. She wasn't just Haley Grant the florist anymore. She was Haley Grant, daughter of Nicholas Bellini, and whatever came next, she'd have to learn to live in both worlds at once. The days after the DNA confirmation blurred together in a rhythm Haley hadn't known existed. She woke in the secure apartment with Vanessa already awake, brewing coffee and checking her phone for updates. Nicholas called twice daily, morning and evening, asking questions that felt awkward but genuine. Had she slept well? Did she need anything? Was she comfortable? By Wednesday evening, 5 days after the attack on the flower shop, Haley's restlessness had grown unbearable. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows watching Manhattan's lights flicker on as dusk settled, feeling like an animal in an expensive cage. "I need to see my mother again," she told Vanessa. "I can't just sit here while she's dying." Vanessa nodded without hesitation. "I'll let Nicholas know. He'll arrange transport." The call was brief. Within an hour, they were in the SUV heading toward New Haven, with Ryan at the wheel and another security vehicle following at a discreet distance. Haley sat in back with Vanessa, watching Connecticut suburbs scroll past the tinted windows. "You've been quiet today," Vanessa observed. "I'm trying to figure out how I'm supposed to feel about all of this." Haley kept her eyes on the passing scenery. "My mom lied to me for 18 years. Nicholas didn't know I existed. The Russians want to use me as leverage. My whole life just imploded, and everyone keeps telling me it's for my protection. That doesn't make it easier to accept." "No, it doesn't." Haley finally looked at her companion. "How do you deal with it? Living in his world? Knowing what he does?" Vanessa was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "I separate the man from the business. Nicholas has done things I don't ask about, but he's also saved lives, including mine. He operates by a code most people wouldn't understand, but it's consistent. He protects his people absolutely, even when his people don't want protection, especially then." Vanessa smiled slightly. "He's not great with boundaries when he thinks someone is in danger. You'll have to train him on that." "Train him? He's a Mafia boss. He's also a father figuring out how to be one for the first time at 40. That makes him surprisingly teachable if you're patient." They reached Yale New Haven Hospital as full darkness settled. Nicholas met them in the private wing, standing outside Amanda's room with his hands in his pockets, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "She's awake," he said, "but she's weaker than on Tuesday. The doctors say her decline is accelerating." Haley felt her throat tighten. "How long?" "Days, maybe a week. They've increased her pain medication." "Is she lucid?" "Mostly, but she drifts." Nicholas hesitated. "She asked to see me with you this time, if you're willing." Haley nodded, not trusting her voice. They entered together, Nicholas hanging back slightly as if unsure of his place in the room. Amanda's eyes opened when she heard them approach. Her face was gaunt, skin paper-thin, but her gaze was alert. "Both of you. Good." Haley took her mother's hand, shocked by how cold it felt. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, baby." Amanda's voice was barely above a whisper. "Nicholas, come closer. I need to see you both together." He moved to the other side of the bed, standing stiffly as if at attention. Amanda looked between them, and despite her obvious pain, managed a weak smile. "You have the same stubborn expression. Both of you look like you're facing a firing squad. We're just worried about you," Haley said. "I know, but I don't have energy to waste on worry. I need to tell you both some things while I still can." Amanda paused to catch her breath, the effort clearly exhausting. "Haley, your father is not the man I ran from 18 years ago. He's harder now, more dangerous, but also more controlled. You're safe with him." "Mom, let me finish. Nicholas, our daughter is not fragile. She's been holding my business together for months, managing employees, dealing with difficult customers, making impossible decisions. Don't treat her like glass." Nicholas nodded once. "Understood. And Haley, don't punish him for my choices. I'm the one who kept you apart. I'm the one who lied. If you're going to be angry at me, not him." "I'm not angry at you," Haley said, tears spilling over. "I'm just sad. I'm losing you, and I don't know how to do this without you." "You'll figure it out. You always do." Amanda squeezed her hand with what little strength remained. "Nicholas, there's an envelope in my apartment, top drawer of my dresser. It's for Haley, but don't give it to her until after I'm gone. Promise me." "I promise." They stayed for another hour, talking quietly about small memories. Amanda told stories about Haley's childhood that Nicholas had never heard. Haley learned details about her parents' relationship that her mother had never shared before. Nicholas sat mostly silent, absorbing information about a life he'd missed. When Amanda finally drifted into medicated sleep, they left quietly. In the hallway, Nicholas turned to Haley. "Thank you for letting me be there. She wanted you there. That's reason enough." They walked toward the elevator in silence. Vanessa had stayed in the waiting room, giving them space. When they rounded the corner, they found her standing by the windows, talking quietly with Ryan. Something about the way they stood, slightly closer than professional distance required, made Haley pause. Nicholas noticed it too. He slowed his steps, observing, when Vanessa laughed at something Ryan said, touching his arm briefly. The gesture carried an intimacy that went beyond co-workers. "How long has that been going on?" Haley asked quietly. "I don't know, but I should have noticed sooner." Nicholas's expression was unreadable. "Ryan's been with me for 12 years. Vanessa for 8. They work together often. Does it bother you?" "No. They're both adults who've earned the right to their personal lives." He glanced at Haley. "Why do you ask?" "Because Vanessa's been kind to me, and Ryan's been professional but decent. If they're happy together, that's good." "Agreed." They continued toward the waiting room. Ryan and Vanessa separated smoothly as they approached, but not before sharing a look that confirmed Haley's observation. Nicholas pretended not to notice, discussing security protocols for the drive back to Manhattan. In the SUV returning to the city, Haley found herself studying the back of Ryan's head as he drove. "Ryan, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Miss Grant." "Call me Haley, and I'm curious. How long have you worked with Nicholas?" 12 years. Since I was 23. "And you've seen a lot in that time?" "More than most people see in a lifetime." Haley leaned forward slightly. "So you've seen him make decisions under pressure. How do I know when he's being protective versus when he's being controlling?" Ryan glanced in the rearview mirror, meeting her eyes. Boss's version of protective usually looks like controlling to everyone else. But here's the difference. He'll explain his reasoning if you ask directly. And he'll adjust if you present a better option. He won't always like it, but he'll listen. "That's accurate," Vanessa confirmed. "He's stubborn, but not irrational. You just have to stand your ground." "Standing my ground against a Mafia boss seems like terrible survival strategy. Standing your ground against your father is how you build a relationship based on respect instead of fear," Ryan said. "He doesn't want you afraid of him, Haley. That's the last thing he wants." The observation surprised her. She sat back, processing. By the time they reached Manhattan, she'd made a decision. "I want to see the flower shop," she announced as they pulled into the garage. "Tomorrow. I need to know what condition it's in and talk to Sarah and Mia. I'll coordinate security," Ryan said immediately. "And I'm coming with you," Vanessa added. Nicholas, who'd been silent most of the drive, simply nodded. "I'll come too, if you'll allow it." "You're asking permission?" "I'm trying to respect boundaries." His tone was careful. "Ryan said you'd appreciate it." Haley almost smiled despite everything. "Yes, you can come." Thursday morning brought gray skies and threat of rain. They took 2 vehicles to Hartford, arriving at Grant Flowers shortly after 10 a.m. Yellow police tape still crossed the entrance, but Ryan cut it away efficiently. The interior looked surprisingly normal, except for missing flowers from the displays that had wilted during the closure. Sarah arrived 15 minutes later, having received a call that morning that the shop would reopen soon. She stopped in the doorway, taking in the scene. Haley standing by the counter, Vanessa examining the cold storage unit, Ryan checking window locks, and Nicholas Bellini himself standing near the back, examining the security system his people had installed. "Haley, what on earth is going on?" Sarah's voice was sharp with worry and confusion. "The police said it was a robbery attempt, but the news is saying something else entirely. And now there's this man here who looks like he owns half of New York." "Sarah, it's complicated." Haley moved toward her longtime employee. "But you deserve the truth. Those men who came here last Friday, they were after me specifically. And Mr. Bellini's security team stopped them." "Why would anyone target you?" Haley glanced at Nicholas, who gave a slight nod of permission. "Because it turns out my father isn't dead like my mom always told me. He's very much alive, and some dangerous people thought they could use me as leverage against him." Sarah's eyes widened as she looked between Haley and Nicholas, seeing the resemblance she'd never had reason to notice before. Oh my God. The eyes. You have the same eyes. We do. Haley took a breath. My mom is dying, Sarah. She asked him to protect me. That's why all of this happened. The older woman sat down heavily on the stool behind the counter. Amanda never said a word. All these years, she was protecting me. From his world, and from people who might use me to hurt him. Sarah looked at Nicholas directly. And now? What happens to Haley in this shop? That's Haley's decision, Nicholas said. I'll provide security and resources, but the business is hers to run or close as she chooses. I want to reopen, Haley said firmly. This shop is my mom's legacy. I'm not letting anyone take that away. Sarah nodded slowly. Then we reopen. But with better security than yellow police tape. Already installed, Ryan confirmed. Cameras, alarms, direct line to our monitoring center. And I'll have 2 people in the area at all times. Discreet people, Haley added. I don't want customers scared away by obvious bodyguards. Discreet, Ryan agreed. They spent the next 3 hours cleaning and restocking. Mia arrived with her mother, who wanted to see that the shop was truly safe before allowing her daughter to return to work. Vanessa handled the concerned parent with practiced diplomacy, explaining security measures without revealing too much about Nicholas's business. By early afternoon, Grant Flowers looked almost normal again. Sarah had called their regular suppliers and arranged deliveries for the next week. Mia was reorganizing the back room. Haley stood at the counter updating their website to announce reopening on Monday. Nicholas had stayed mostly in the background, observing but not interfering. Now he approached Haley with careful steps. You've done well here. Your mother would be proud. She built this from nothing. I'm just trying to keep it going. That's harder than building sometimes. Maintaining what someone else created requires different skills. Haley looked up at him. Is that experience talking? My father built our family business. I inherited it at 24 when he died. I spent years figuring out how to honor what he created while adapting it to survive. Nicholas paused. It's not the same situation, but I understand the pressure of legacy. It was the most personal thing he'd shared with her. Haley found herself wanting to know more. Did you ever resent him for it? For leaving you with that responsibility? Every day at first. Then I realized resentment was wasted energy. I could either step up or watch everything fall apart. So I stepped up. And now? Now I'm trying to figure out how to be a father when the only example I had was someone who taught me about power and control, but not much about actual parenting. His expression was wry. I'm not doing great so far. You're doing better than you think. The admission surprised Haley as much as it clearly surprised him. You could have just sent bodyguards and money. Instead, you're here helping me clean my flower shop. That counts for something. Before Nicholas could respond, Vanessa appeared from the back room. Sarah wants to know if we should order the usual amount of roses or double it for the reopening. Double, Haley decided. People will come out of curiosity if nothing else. Might as well have inventory to sell them. The day wound down with plans in place for Monday's reopening. As they prepared to leave, Sarah pulled Haley aside. Your father seems like a decent man under all that intensity. But Haley, be careful. Men with that kind of power don't live simple lives. I know, but he's all I've got left once Mom is gone. No, baby. You've got me. You've got Mia. You've got this shop and everyone who loves you. Don't forget that. The reminder settled something in Haley's chest. She wasn't alone, regardless of what happened with Nicholas. That night, back in the Manhattan apartment, Haley sat with Vanessa drinking tea while rain pattered against the windows. Nicholas had gone to handle business he'd been neglecting, but he'd called 20 minutes ago to check that they'd arrived safely. Can I ask you something personal? Haley said. Always. You and Ryan. How long? Vanessa smiled into her tea. A few months. We kept it quiet because mixing personal and professional in Nicholas's world can be complicated. But I think he knows now. He saw you together at the hospital. He didn't seem bothered. Nicholas understands loyalty. Ryan and I are both loyal to him first. What we are to each other doesn't change that. Is it hard? Being with someone in this life? Sometimes. But it's also easier because we understand the rules. We know what we signed up for. Vanessa studied Haley's face. Why do you ask? Because I'm trying to understand how people build normal relationships in abnormal circumstances. My mom did it with Nicholas once. It didn't work out, obviously, but she tried. Your situation is different. You're not dating someone in this world. You're family. That's more complicated, but also more permanent. Family doesn't walk away as easily as lovers do. The distinction made sense. Haley finished her tea and stood to look out at the rain-soaked city. Somewhere out there, Nicholas was handling whatever business required his attention. Somewhere in Connecticut, her mother was dying. And somehow, Haley was supposed to figure out how to navigate between those two realities. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nicholas. Hospital called. Your mother had a difficult night. She's stable now, but doctors say it won't be much longer. I'm arranging for you to visit tomorrow morning. Haley closed her eyes, letting the tears come. Vanessa was beside her immediately, not saying anything, just offering presence. Time was running out, and there were still so many things Haley needed to say to her mother before it was too late. Amanda died on a Monday morning just before sunrise. Haley sat in the uncomfortable hospital chair holding her mother's hand, watching the chest movements grow shallower until they stopped entirely. The monitors continued their steady beeping for several seconds after, as if refusing to acknowledge what was obvious. Then came the controlled silence of the medical staff. The doctor with tired eyes, the nurse adjusting sheets with practiced respect. Nicholas stood on the other side of the bed, having arrived an hour earlier when the hospital called to say Amanda's vitals were declining rapidly. He'd driven through empty pre-dawn streets to be there, not because Amanda had asked for him, but because Haley shouldn't face this alone. When the doctor confirmed time of death at 6:47 a.m., Haley finally released her mother's hand. It was cold now, the warmth that had defined Amanda Grant completely gone. She stood abruptly, nearly knocking over the chair, and stumbled toward the window overlooking the parking lot, where early shift workers were arriving for their day. Nicholas gave her space, but stayed close enough to catch her if she fell. When Haley's legs finally gave out, he was there, guiding her back to the chair, crouching in front of her so their eyes were level. "I've got you," he said quietly. "Whatever you need right now, I've got you." Haley looked at him through tears, seeing her own eyes reflected back, and something broke open in her chest. She leaned forward and he caught her, arms coming around her shoulders as she sobbed into his jacket. He didn't offer platitudes about time healing or her mother being in a better place. He just held her while she cried for the parent she'd lost and the childhood built on necessary lies. The next hours blurred together. Paperwork, phone calls, decisions about funeral homes and burial arrangements. Nicholas handled logistics with quiet efficiency, while Haley sat numbly in waiting rooms, Vanessa appearing at some point to sit beside her with coffee and silence. By early afternoon, they were back in Manhattan. Haley had insisted on going to the secure apartment rather than Hartford, not ready to face the flower shop or her empty apartment, or any of the places that would remind her that Amanda was truly gone. She slept for 16 hours straight, waking Tuesday evening disoriented and hollow. Vanessa was in the kitchen cooking something that smelled like chicken and herbs. Nicholas sat in the living room reviewing documents on his laptop, but he closed it the moment Haley emerged from the bedroom. "Hungry?" Vanessa asked. "Not really." Haley's voice was hoarse from crying. "But I should probably eat." They sat together at the dining table, an awkward approximation of family dinner. Haley pushed food around her plate while Nicholas and Vanessa talked quietly about arrangements they'd made. The funeral would be Friday in Hartford. Small service, just close friends and colleagues from the shop. "Your mother left instructions," Nicholas said carefully, "in the envelope she mentioned at the hospital. I retrieved it from her apartment yesterday." He handed Haley a cream-colored envelope with "For Haley," written in Amanda's shaky handwriting. Inside was a 2-page letter and a smaller sealed envelope marked "For Nicholas." Haley read her mother's letter silently, tears streaming down her face. Amanda had written it weeks ago when she could still hold a pen steadily. It contained apologies for the lies, explanations for the choices, and expressions of pride for the woman Haley had become. At the end, a request: "Give Nicholas a chance. He's earned it by keeping you safe." "She left something for you too," Haley said, sliding the second envelope across the table. Nicholas opened it, reading quickly. His jaw tightened, but his expression remained controlled. When he finished, he folded the single page carefully and put it in his pocket. "What did she say?" Haley asked. "That she was sorry for the years I missed. That she hoped I'd be the father you deserved now that I had the chance." He paused. "And that she loved me once, before everything became complicated." The admission hung in the air between them. Haley had never considered that her parents might have genuinely loved each other, not just had a brief relationship that ended badly. Seeing the carefully masked emotion on Nicholas's face made her realize he was grieving too, for different reasons but with equal weight. Friday's funeral was quiet and dignified. The service was held at a small chapel in Hartford, with maybe 30 people in attendance. Sarah and Mia had arranged flowers from Grant Flowers throughout the space, cream roses and white lilies that Amanda would have approved of. Haley delivered the eulogy with a steady voice that surprised her. She talked about her mother's strength, her dedication to building a life from nothing, her love of flowers and the small joys they brought people. She didn't mention the secrets or the fear that had driven Amanda's choices. Those were private truths that didn't need to be part of the public goodbye. Nicholas sat in the second row with Vanessa and Ryan, dressed in a dark suit that made him look simultaneously powerful and uncomfortable. He didn't speak during the service, but when they moved to the cemetery for burial, he placed a single black rose on the casket before it was lowered into the ground. "Why black?" Haley asked later. "It was what she sent me to reveal the truth." Seemed appropriate to return the gesture. After the funeral, people gathered at a small reception at a restaurant near the flower shop. Haley accepted condolences and shared memories, playing the role of composed daughter while feeling completely unmoored inside. Sarah stayed close, running interference when someone got too personal with their questions. Mia cried openly, her teenage emotions less filtered than the adults around her. By evening, most people had left. Haley sat at a corner table with Nicholas and Vanessa, exhausted beyond measure. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you grieve," Nicholas said. "And when you're ready, you decide what you want to do about the shop, the apartment, your life. There's no rush. I want to keep the shop running. Mom built that place from nothing. I'm not letting it die with her. Then we'll make sure it stays open." Haley looked at him directly. "I don't want to be a charity case. If I'm running Grant Flowers, I'm doing it legitimately. No Mafia money propping it up. No fake contracts to keep me afloat. Real business or nothing." Something that might have been respect flickered across Nicholas's face. "Understood. Though I'll point out that the contract with my restaurants is completely legitimate and has increased my floral costs while improving ambiance. That's just good business. Fine. But nothing beyond what makes actual business sense." Agreed. The next week settled into a new rhythm. Haley threw herself into running the flower shop, arriving early and staying late, filling every hour with work so she didn't have time to think about the hole Amanda's death had left. Sarah worried openly about her burning out, but Haley insisted she was fine. Nicholas appeared in Hartford twice a week, ostensibly to check on the flower deliveries to his businesses, but really to check on Haley. He never stayed long, maybe an hour for coffee and awkward conversation, as they both tried to figure out how to be father and daughter without a script. "Did you always want to run restaurants?" Haley asked one afternoon while they sat in the back room of the shop. "No. They're a useful front for other activities, but I've grown to appreciate them. Food brings people together. It's one of the few legitimately good things I'm associated with. Do you ever wish you'd done something else? Something completely different?" Nicholas considered the question seriously. "When I was younger, maybe. But I inherited responsibilities that didn't leave room for alternatives. By the time I was your age, my path was set. That's sad. It's practical. Not everyone gets to choose their life, Haley. Some of us just manage the hand we're dealt as best we can." The observation made her see him differently. Not as the intimidating Mafia boss, but as someone who'd been trapped by circumstance and family obligation, just like Amanda had been trapped by fear and necessity. Both her parents had made impossible choices that led to 18 years of separation. One evening, 6 weeks after the funeral, Haley was closing the shop when her phone rang. Nicholas's name on the screen. "Are you busy Saturday night?" he asked without preamble. "Not particularly." "Why?" "I want you to come to dinner in Manhattan. Proper dinner, At one of my restaurants. Vanessa will be there. Consider it a late birthday celebration since I missed your actual birthday by 18 years. Haley almost declined reflexively, but something in his tone stopped her. This mattered to him. Okay, what time? 7. I'll send a car. Saturday evening, Haley found herself in an upscale Italian restaurant in Midtown, seated at a private table with Nicholas and Vanessa. The space was elegant but warm, with exposed brick walls and soft lighting that made everyone look better than they probably felt. Nicholas had ordered wine and appetizers before she arrived. He stood when she approached, pulling out her chair in a gesture that was both old-fashioned and oddly touching. "You look nice," he said. "You sound surprised." "I'm not. Just making an observation." Vanessa laughed. "He's terrible at compliments. What he means is that it's good to see you in something other than your work clothes." Haley had borrowed a dress from a friend. Simple black with modest neckline, paired with boots because she still couldn't handle heels for more than 20 minutes. She felt out of place among the well-dressed Manhattan crowd, but tried not to show it. Dinner was surprisingly pleasant. They talked about the flower shop's improving revenue, about Nicholas's ongoing issues with city permits for a new restaurant location, about Vanessa's plans to open a second bar location in Brooklyn. The conversation flowed more naturally than previous attempts, helped by good food and wine that loosened everyone's tension slightly. Dessert arrived with a single candle in Haley's tiramisu. She looked at Nicholas questioningly. "You turned 18 in March." "I wasn't there." "This is inadequate compensation. But it's something." Haley felt her throat tighten. "You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to. Humor me." She blew out the candle without making a wish, too overwhelmed to think of one that wasn't already too late. When she looked up, both Nicholas and Vanessa were watching her with expressions that held more emotion than she knew how to handle. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for trying. I know this is weird for all of us, but I appreciate that you're trying. We're family," Nicholas said simply. Weird comes with the territory. Later that night, being driven back to Hartford in the town car Nicholas had arranged, Haley replayed the evening in her mind. Her father had celebrated her birthday 6 months late with his girlfriend, who was becoming something like a friend to Haley too. It was bizarre and imperfect, and nothing like she'd imagined family could be. But it was something, and maybe, with time, something could become enough. 2 months after Amanda's death, Haley woke one morning and realized the crushing weight on her chest had lifted slightly. Grief was still there, would probably always be there in some form, but it no longer consumed every thought. She could remember her mother without immediately crying, could run the flower shop without feeling like she was failing Amanda's legacy every time she made a different choice. She called Nicholas that afternoon. "I want to see where you work. The real work. Not just the restaurants." There was a long pause. "That's not a good idea. I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you this is important. If you're going to be in my life, I need to understand all of it. Not just the sanitized version." Another pause. "Friday afternoon. My office in Manhattan. But Haley, what you see might change how you feel about me. That's a risk I'm willing to take." Friday afternoon, Ryan picked her up from Hartford and drove her to the building she'd visited that first night. But instead of the guest apartment, they went to Nicholas's actual office on the floor above. The space was exactly what she'd expected. Dark wood, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Nicholas sat behind his desk reviewing contracts. He looked up when she entered, and for a moment she saw uncertainty in his expression. "You came. I said I would." For the next 2 hours, he walked her through the reality of his business. Not the violent details, but the structure. How legitimate operations funded and concealed illegal ones. How loyalty and fear maintained order. How he made decisions that affected hundreds of lives, for better or worse. Haley listened without interrupting, trying to reconcile the man explaining logistics calmly with the father who'd held her while she cried at her mother's deathbed. When he finished, she sat silently for several minutes. "I don't like what you do," she finally said. "But I understand why my mother thought you'd protect me. Because you protect everything you consider yours, completely and without hesitation." "Yes, and I'm yours now." "Your daughter." "Yes. Then I need you to promise me something. If I'm going to accept you as family, Truly accept it? You have to promise that you'll never use what you do to solve my problems unless I explicitly ask. I don't want people threatened or hurt because they gave me a hard time. I don't want the weight of that on my conscience. Nicholas stood, walking to the windows. I can't promise never to intervene if you're in genuine danger. Genuine danger, fine. But not every difficult customer or rude person I encounter. Promise me. He turned to face her. I promise. Unless your life is at risk, I'll respect your boundaries. Okay. Haley stood as well. Then I'm in. Fully in. Whatever this strange father-daughter relationship looks like, I'm willing to figure it out with you. Nicholas crossed the office and, somewhat awkwardly, pulled her into a hug. It was still stilted, still uncertain, but more natural than previous attempts. Haley hugged him back, feeling the solid reality of having a father after 18 years of imagined absence. Your mother would be pleased, he said quietly. She wanted this for you, for both of us. I know. Haley pulled back to look at him. So let's make it worth all the years she spent keeping us apart. They left the office together, father and daughter walking side by side into whatever complicated future awaited them. The flower shop in Hartford, the criminal empire in Manhattan, the carefully constructed life that bridged both worlds. The most immediate threat from Kozlov's men had faded after the failed attack and Nicholas's quiet retaliation, but the uneasy truce that followed meant extra security, not true peace. It wasn't perfect or simple or anything close to normal, but it was theirs, and that made it worth fighting for. The end.